They look peaceful, calm, even beautiful. But beneath the surface of these lakes lie whispers, shadows, and secrets the water refuses to keep. These are the top 10 most haunted lakes in the US, and once you dive in, you may never come back up the same. One, Lake Lanier, Georgia. They say if you listen closely at night, just as the fog rolls over the still waters of Lake Lanier, you might hear it, the soft whisper of a woman calling for help, only to vanish into the darkness. Built over the remnants of old towns and cemeteries, this man-made lake has a chilling past. Homes, churches, and even graves were submerged beneath its surface, forgotten, but not silent. Locals speak of a ghostly figure, the Lady of the Lake. Dressed in a flowing blue gown, her hands missing. She appears on lonely roads near the water, begging for a ride. But before the car even stops, she's gone, vanished. Just like the dozens who've mysteriously drowned here, their bodies never recovered. Boaters report being pulled under by invisible hands. Divers feel sudden chills in perfectly warm water. Some believe the spirits of the displaced still roam below, angry, restless. And the most terrifying part, accidents keep happening. People die, and no one really knows why. So if you ever visit Lake Lanier, don't go alone. Ha. 2. Lake Superior, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan. On the vast, icy waters of Lake Superior, silence isn't peace. It's a warning. This lake, beautiful, endless, is also a graveyard. Storms rise without warning, swallowing ships whole. The most infamous? The SS Edmund Fitzgerald, a 729-foot freighter that vanished in 1975 with all 29 crew aboard. No distress signal, no survivors, just gone. But the story doesn't end there. Fishermen still report seeing a massive ship cutting through the fog, glowing faintly in the moonlight. Silent, untouchable, a ghost ship. When they try to follow it, it disappears. Divers claim to hear knocking from inside wrecks. Others say they've seen faces peering from the dark windows of sunken vessels, faces that shouldn't be there. Locals whisper that the lake never gives up its dead, that the cold preserves them, traps them, and sometimes, just sometimes, they come back. On Lake Superior, the dead don't rest, they drift, and they watch. Three, Lake Ronkonkoma, New York. They call her the Princess of the Lake, and her love story is anything but romantic. Long ago, a Native American princess fell in love with a white settler. Forbidden to be together, she waited at the edge of Lake Ronkonkoma for him year after year, but he never came. Heartbroken, she rode into the middle of the lake and drowned herself. Since then, something dark has lingered beneath the calm surface. Every year, almost like clockwork, a young man drowns, often a strong swimmer, often in perfect weather. Locals believe it's her, the princess, still waiting, still searching, and still taking. Some claim to see a woman standing barefoot at the shoreline, her long hair dripping wet, her eyes hollow with sorrow. She speaks to no one. She just stares and vanishes if you get too close. It's not just a legend. The pattern is real. The deaths are real. And if you're a young man, she'd like to meet you. 4. Lake Tahoe, California, Nevada. Beneath the crystal clear beauty of Lake Tahoe lies something darker than anyone dares admit. They say the lake is bottomless, a place where bodies never float back up. Locals whisper about the mob dumping victims here in the 1950s, their concrete shoes anchoring them in icy silence. But some divers say they've seen them, perfectly preserved, eyes wide open, swaying gently in the dark. And then there are the shadows. Boaters speak of ghostly figures standing on the shoreline, vanishing the moment you try to look again. Some claim to hear screams echoing across the water on windless nights, screams that stop as suddenly as they start. Even stranger, a few have reported swimming in warm water, only to hit a freezing current that feels like a hand grabbing their ankle, pulling down. Lake Tahoe is beautiful, serene, but it hides its dead well, and if you're not careful, you might become one of them. Five, White Rock Lake, Texas. It always begins the same way. A driver cruising along the quiet roads near White Rock Lake, headlights slicing through the darkness. When they see her, a young woman in a soaked white dress, shivering, alone. She flags them down, begs for a ride home. Her voice is soft, polite, almost too calm, and out of pity or curiosity, they let her in. She gives an address not far away, but when they arrive, she's gone. The seat is wet, the car is cold, and the house? The old woman who answers the door just shakes her head. "You're not the first," she says. "That was my daughter. She drowned years ago." The Lady of White Rock Lake has been haunting this stretch of road for nearly a century. No one knows why she keeps returning. Some say she doesn't know she's dead. Others think she's looking for someone or trying to warn them. But one thing's for sure. If you stop for her, you'll never forget her. Six, Lake Crescent, Washington. Tucked deep within Olympic National Park, Lake Crescent is breathtaking and deadly. They call it a place where the water keeps secrets. Cold, deep, silent. In 1940, a woman named Hallie Illingworth vanished without a trace. 3 years later, her body rose to the surface, perfectly preserved, her skin turned to soap by the frigid waters. Locals called her the Lady of the Lake, but she wasn't the first or the last. Hikers report hearing a woman crying near the water's edge, though no one is there. Campers wake up to wet footprints around their tents, and some see her, drifting just beneath the surface, eyes open, mouth frozen mid-scream. Divers say there's something strange about the bottom of the lake. A pressure, a feeling, like they're being watched, pulled. It's beautiful here, peaceful on the surface. But don't be fooled. Lake Crescent holds on to what it takes, and sometimes it gives it back. 7. Lake Mead, Nevada, Arizona. When the waters of Lake Mead began to recede, secrets long buried began to rise. It started with barrels, rusted, heavy, sealed tight. Inside, bones, human remains. The first was found in 2022, then another and another. Some say they were mob victims, dumped decades ago when the lake ran deep and the silence ran deeper. But it wasn't just the bodies that came back. Boaters now report strange splashes in still water. Divers feel sudden drops in temperature, like walking through a ghost. And a few have claimed to see figures standing waist-deep in the lake, unmoving, eyes locked with theirs, before vanishing. Fishermen speak of tugging on something heavy, only to find their lines cut clean, like a warning. Locals believe the lake is haunted by the forgotten, that those pulled under weren't ready to die, and now that the lake is shrinking, they're closer than ever, and maybe they want to be found. 8. Devil's Lake, Wisconsin. There's something ancient beneath the surface of Devil's Lake, something that watches and waits. Surrounded by towering bluffs and dense forests, the lake feels timeless. But Native American legends say this place was once home to a water spirit, a creature with glowing eyes and a hunger for souls. They called it the Spirit of the Deep, and they feared it. Even now, strange things happen here. Campers hear drumming at night, echoing from the cliffs. Hikers report seeing dark shapes beneath the surface, far too large to be fish. And swimmers speak of a sudden force, pulling them down when no current exists. One boy swore he felt fingers wrap around his ankle, yanking him underwater. He barely escaped, and hasn't been back since. There are no houses on the lake, no boats after sunset. The locals know better, because Devil's Lake doesn't just take lives. It invites you in, then decides if you leave. Nine. Crescent Lake, Oregon. Hidden deep within the Cascade Mountains, Crescent Lake is quiet, too quiet. Locals say the silence isn't peace, it's warning. Over a century ago, a young woman vanished during a winter storm. Her body was never found. But soon after, strange sightings began. Campers reported waking to a figure standing at the edge of the lake, her dress frozen, her face pale and blurred by mist. She never speaks. She only stares. And then, she disappears. Fishermen say they've heard a woman's voice calling from the center of the lake, even when no one else is around. Some who've followed the sound report losing time, hours gone in a blink, and returning to shore, drenched and shaking, with no memory of what happened. No one has ever been able to explain the vanishings, the voices, the feeling of being watched when the lake fog rolls in. But one thing is certain. Crescent Lake may be beautiful, but it remembers, and it mourns. Lake Champlain, New York, Vermont. Most know Lake Champlain for its legendary lake monster, Champ, but the real terror lies just beneath the surface. For centuries, sailors and locals have reported ghost ships drifting silently across the water, tattered sails, full despite windless nights, no crew aboard, just the sound of creaking wood and chains dragging behind. Try to follow them, and they vanish into mist. Divers speak of whispers underwater, voices that grow louder the deeper you go. One man claimed he saw a face in the hull of a sunken vessel, eyes open, mouth screaming, frozen in time. And then there's the woman. Several boaters swear they've seen a bride in white, walking on the lake at dawn. Some say she drowned on her wedding day. Others say she was left at the altar and took her own life. But all agree on one thing: she's searching. Still, Lake Champlain hides more than monsters. It's a mirror for the lost, and it never forgets a soul. So the next time you find yourself near still waters, remember, some lakes don't just reflect the past. They hold on to it. Which haunted lake would you dare to visit?